the other thing that I like to point out is that what really determines the results that you get, whether it's with women, relationships, etc., is not necessarily only the resources that you have or how resourceful you can be in certain contexts or everything that you know, etc. What determines how far you can go is the constraints or the things that hold you back. And sometimes all it takes is one. I've had clients where they've had everything going for them, except that we found out that they didn't feel they deserved success. And what happens is that they can go out and they can create success and they can do something that succeeds. But what it seems like is that unconsciously we have either a comfort zone or we have sort of a set limit of how successful we're going to allow ourselves to be. And we can temporarily go above that, but when we do, it's like our unconscious minds drags us back to the level of comfort that we have. So one of the most important things you can look for is not only what do you need to learn, but what are the potential things that holds you back.